Hello and welcome to my How to Homeschool class. Today's topic is Know the Rules and Consider the Freedom. I very much appreciate your attending. My name is Andrea and I'll be guiding you through today's class. So I'm always curious, how did you hear about today's class and where you're calling in from? If you can, please let me know in the comments below because it always helps me to get an idea of how our community is growing throughout the world. So I appreciate your sharing. A little bit about myself. I'm calling in from Maryland, which is on the East Coast of the United States, and I'm a wife and mother of 4. So each day my family and I would live with 12 healthy habits in order to enjoy a better quality of life. And we do this also to support the success of all that God calls us to do. And because these habits have been so transformative to our lives, I make sure to share guidance on how to both implement and stick with each of these helpful habits so that we can all live truly thriving lives together. So I'll share more about the other videos, workshops, classes, and support groups that I offer throughout the week. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and jump right into today's class. Our goal today is to discover what homeschooling is really like and to learn about the common regulations and processes to follow so that you can enjoy homeschool freedom. So while we're together today, we'll cover various ways to homeschool, unique options that are available to homeschoolers, increased freedom for homeschool families, things to specify in your homeschool vision, as well as common homeschool rules and regulations to be aware of. So there's various ways to homeschool, but regardless of what you do, you're going to need confidence because uncertainty is the enemy of confidence. So I'll start by giving you some facts to help you build confidence. Defining homeschool, addressing common concerns, and just encouraging you to remember your why and to envision your ideal. So homeschooling basically just means withdrawing your kids from the school system and teaching your kids for yourself. It's also called home instruction, or you might hear it called home education. It is free, completely free, and in person and one-on-one time that you can do in a way that it works for you. It's not the same as private school or the same as virtual learning or distance learning or remote learning. It's teaching your kids at home for yourself with your own prepared curriculum. So there's different types of homeschooling. You might hear about unschooling, which is more so allowing the kids to guide their own schooling subjects and topics of their interest. And there's also road schooling, where you're basically homeschooling on the road and kind of traveling in the midst of it, which seems really fun, right? And those are a few different homeschool visions that people might have, but you just want to nail down your homeschool vision. Why do you want to homeschool? Are you hoping to provide your kids a one-on-one learning environment? Are you hoping for more family bonding? Do you want to instill some family values? Are you hoping to give your kids more free time? Maybe you want to just be able to teach at your kids' own pace so they don't have to try to keep up with the class. Take some time to envision your ideal based on your vision and your child's interests, the subjects that they're interested in the learning tools that you might want to use. Consider the location that you might want to homeschool in, as well as the schedule that you might want to have. So if you're curious about what homeschooling looks like, you can always check out my homeschool day in the life video, which is on YouTube, and I'll put it in the link below so you can take a look at that if you're interested. When you homeschool, you have a lot of unique opportunities and freedoms, but you do have to take time to address any common concerns that you might have. You're not alone in them, but we have to just address them and then move along. So you might have concerns like, I don't have time to homeschool. But you can teach anytime. Learning can happen anytime. So it can happen on your schedule. Your school day can be shorter because it's one-on-one, and you can teach in the evenings, you can teach on the weekends. Even if you're a working parent, you can still homeschool. It's not an impossibility. You might be concerned thinking, I'm just not qualified. Well, as their parent, I would like to think you know your child better than anyone else, so that already qualifies you to know what they like, how they work best, and how to best help and suit them based off of their needs or their interests. We all also have transferable life skills that we can use and apply to our homeschooling style. And if you feel like you really need a little bit of help, you can always just get resources, and those resources can help you to feel more confident about what you're doing and about where you're going, and then you can just piggyback off of those. If you'd like, you can use my homeschool guides. So I have them for each of the languages. So I have these for each of the subjects, the usual common core subjects, and it basically just gives you guidance on how to set up. And then there's also worksheets and charts to try to help your children to learn. So check that out. All right, so maybe your concern is that maybe you can't afford to homeschool. the best way to do it is to just make it your own. You don't have to have a lot of fancy tools. You don't have to have any fancy curriculum. You can just make your own. You can draw your own. You can use YouTube videos to try to help with learning. You can use a library or free museums to be able to have experiences. And you could use free educational videos on YouTube to help with the learning process as well. You can get some low-cost Dollar Tree curriculum books. So there's plenty of options to be able to homeschool without really having to spend much at all. If you're concerned that your kids won't be prepared for college and have access to things like standardized testing or SATs, SAT prep and things like that, you can check out umbrella schools, which offer some transcripts that you can use for colleges. And sometimes your local school can also, for the last 4 years of school, oversee some of the things that they're doing and then create a report card and transcripts that are just the same. So if you're worried that your kids won't be socialized, when kids are homeschooled, their parents can be a great example for them, which can kind of help them along with their social skills a little bit faster, actually, because then their parent can kind of correct habits that might go unnoticed or uncorrected in a school situation. You also have plenty of time to schedule social activities and activities where they can be around other kids and be able to interact in that way. All right, you don't know what you don't know, so let's take some time to define some terms so that you can be aware of the regular homeschooling terms that you'll hear and also some of the common regulations that you might run into. So you'll want to find your county's homeschool website. And this is usually on your state department's education website or on your county's public school website. Regulations are state regulated rules that homeschoolers have to follow and do by law. So this is called the Code of Regulations, and if not followed, a child is mandated to go back into public schools and there may be legal consequences to result. So these rules vary by state, rules like the subjects that you have to teach or how often you need to teach, if you even need to inform and notify the state prior to attempting to homeschool, and if your state requires any type of testing. The good news is, though, that even though there may be rules in various states, that homeschooling is legal in all 50 states. Some states have very little rules, almost none, and then other ones are very stringent. So just take a look and see which ones are there for your state and for your counties. So that notice of intent, you want to make sure that you're letting your county know that you plan to homeschool your child. As far as the subjects, or you might also hear it called Common Core subjects, these are the topics that you'll usually be teaching your children. For example, math, English, art, things like that. And some states require for you to teach specific subjects. Other states just want it to be something similar to what other children would be learning in a brick and mortar school. So curriculum. Curriculum really gets into the more specific subtopics that are within each subject. These are usually arranged in a strategic order so that the children can learn in a specific order, and these rules usually vary by state. So for example, curriculum within math would be things like algebra or adding, subtracting, and geometry, fractions, just the different areas within. And you can usually go to some county website for their school system, and they might have something called a year at a glance, and that can give you an idea of the types of things they're teaching within that school year. Then there's learning tools. Learning tools are items and actions, locations, services, whatever you're using to teach your child and to test from. These are also sometimes called instructional materials or learning materials, learning a box curriculum, or curriculum books. So this is not to be confused with actual curriculum. So the word curriculum just means the things that you're teaching your child. The learning tools or the curriculum box or the curriculum workbooks, those are a system, like these are a system of how you can teach your child. But you can make your own curriculum if you'd like. That's how I started. All right, so back on these learning tools and or curriculum books, whatever it might be, the rules vary by state whether they're going to require, hello. And then rules vary by state as far as whether or not they're going to want to see which curriculum that you're using. They might be interested to see which books they're reading, etc. So that brings me into portfolios. So a portfolio is a collection of your child's work. So basically examples of what they're doing. Some people call it work samples. Some states require portfolios, some do not. Some are going to accept things like worksheets, but some will accept photos and receipts from any type of outing or field trips that you do, or activities and experiments. And then kind of right along with portfolios, there are reviews. Reviews are like a meeting or a time where the school system will review what your child is doing throughout the school year to see if to make sure they're on track learning based off of what the school mandates and what they would like the children to be learning for that school year. And you might also hear this sometimes called portfolio reviews or maybe evaluations. So it varies by state if they're going to require this at all, and if they do, how they will accept the review to be done. Some will do virtual reviews, some will request in-person reviews. Some will just allow you to send your work virtually, like pictures of the work virtually, to the reviewer. And that brings me to reviewer. The reviewer is a person that's a representative from your local school system in your county that you can meet for portfolio reviews. So they're the person that's going to be looking at your child's portfolio during the portfolio review time. And I forgot to mention, the portfolios are usually reviewed a few times a year, usually once a semester or so, depending on where you are. So basically, the portfolio reviewer's job is to check to make sure that your child is learning regularly and thoroughly, and they report back to the school system. But the reviewer cannot supersede the rules for your state. So if your state says you only need certain things, just be mindful, because sometimes reviewers can push. Be mindful of what the rules are for your state and make sure that they do not try to require you to do something that is beyond that. That's a common issue sometimes with homeschoolers. So stand your ground and know your rights and know your state's rules. Then there's umbrellas. So an umbrella is a third-party group or a school that supervises a home instruction instead of the county reviewer. So if you choose to go with an umbrella, it might need to be state certified, and some states might not allow the use of an umbrella group at all and might require that you have a county reviewer. You could also consider a homeschool co-op. This is usually a group of homeschool families that join together towards common goals like support groups, socialization, education and activities, and maybe even recess. So the rules vary here because co-ops vary. Some are academic enrichment co-ops, some are buyer co-ops, some are social co-ops, some are online co-ops, and some co-ops are just really for extracurricular fun for families and for homeschoolers. So just be mindful, preparing for homeschool is not an overnight process, unless you want it to be. But if you have the time, give yourself at least a week or two to set yourself up for a successful homeschool experience. Take plenty of time to think about what your homeschool vision is and exactly how you would like it to be. And try to take time to envision what you want first before you get really heavy into the rules for your state, because that can kind of, put a damper on things. And you want to remember what you want to do, because you might be able to do both. You can satisfy their requirements and then move on to the things that you and your kids want to do as well. So I made you a ready to start homeschooling checklist to help you confirm that you're ready to start homeschooling. And I'll place the link in the comments or in the description below. So some keys to success. One would be preparation and flexibility. It's important to prepare your meals in advance so that you'll be ready and you won't have to think too much during the school day. You want to make sure you get plenty of rest the night before you teach. Don't be up all night trying to prepare a lesson. You want to make sure that you learn from any lesson setbacks and keep notes on what you've learned so that you can correct that and do better in the future. Be flexible, so if the school day doesn't start when you were hoping to, just let it go. Just take it easy and enjoy the time. Enjoy your homeschool freedom. So to recap, the plan is to envision your ideal homeschool setup. Take time to research your local homeschool regulations a little further for your own particular county and state. Plan your routine and your lessons and your portfolio review setup. Take time to gather the learning tools, give your school the notice of intent, and then start enjoying homeschool freedom. So you may have noticed earlier that I said that my family and we live with 12 healthy habits in order to enjoy a better quality of life. So then, homeschooling is just one of the 12. I embrace all these healthy habits so that we can have less bad habits that could sabotage our efforts to obey God, and more helpful habits to support our success as we live to do all that Yahweh called us to do. So for each of these habits, I offer guidance via workbooks and classes and support groups to help you to implement and stick with each habit. So if you could use any more guidance with this or any of the other 12 healthy habits, I'm here to guide you. You can find more details on my website, which is trulythrivinglives.org. All right, so I'd love to know, how did you enjoy today's class and what questions do you have for me? You can let me know in the comments below, or if you'd like, you can save your questions for support group or for coaching. Either way, I look forward to supporting you along your journey. All right, thanks again for attending, and I hope you have a blessed day.